I have to start obviously by saying congratulations. You are the youngest ever winner of a major literary prize. You've won with your wonderful book, The Diary of a Young Naturalist. You've won the Wainwright Prize. So well done.
Oh, thank you. Oh, it feels crazy, but what means just that bit more to me is that I feel that this book also in a way feels like a youth voice, and for me that feels like the most almost the most important thing for me, that we have that maybe, just maybe, some other young people might see this book and might think about taking up their own voice, because every single voice that we add to a discussion diversifies it and enriches it. And I just want to, when I wrote this book, I just wanted to share my view on the world and my experiences and how that world has shaped me. And I just want to hear everybody else's, all of these young people out there and their voices. And this prize means that bit much more to me, because it feels like youth voices can be heard, and we can, even in the world of literature, which has always been seen as a older, where especially nature writing, which has always been seen as for more older people. And the fact that I've proved to myself that younger people can write about these diverse and incredible issues while also exploring the natural world that we live in. That is, Rosie, sorry, my dog is like, so sorry, this diverse, yeah.
It was, Dara, it was widely discussed between the judges that if you were to win this prize, that you would reach a younger audience, and that was important. And I think it was something that all the judges agreed. It's not because of your age, but alongside your age, that's why I think we all agreed that this is an important book, because you can be a role model for a generation, and as you've said yourself, open up this conversation and inspire younger minds and younger people to explore themselves and nature the way that you have.
Lucy. Sorry, can you
go somewhere?
Maybe just can you or is he kind of like,
there you go. Is she going in or out?
Nobody ever knows.
Including her, it looks like.
There including her, most definitely.
There we go. Well, wildlife in your living room there. So I was saying, it's important to have young role models in this space, and you've achieved that now with this book. I mean, you've already got great notoriety, and this is obviously going to help it. Are you comfortable with how the book has been perceived? Is it how you wanted? Everything that you've read about the response to it so far, does it warm your heart?
I think the responses that actually affected me the most, the ones that really touched me to every bone in my body and every ounce of my being, that affected me, were those people who came back and said that the book had changed, even just slightly, their outlook on the world. And I feel like that is what books are here for. They're to add on and create these new worlds in fiction, or expressing the real world in non-fiction, and using that as a medium for changing how we observe the world. And the fact that people came back to me and said that they saw the world in the new ways, it felt almost real, because I'm trying to sort of explain it made it feel a lot more tangible.
Well, it is real and it is tangible. Yeah. You have reached people in that way. Now, the book was edited very sensitively with the help of your family and with Little Toller, your publisher. And it's important to mention them because they're a small publisher, a husband and wife team. I think it's fair to say that this is it's such a heartfelt project. When you read the edited version of your book, were you still happy? Was it still true to your voice?
Yeah, most of the book actually made it through the chopping floor and managed to worm its way to finished copy. There was some areas that I needed to touch up on, and one of the funny things that came out of the editing process is that I think some of it still is retained in the book, but there is an actual steady increase in my quality of writing as you go through the book. And there was a lot more evident before the editing process as I got to grips with actually writing a book, which I never really experienced or had any idea of how to even go about this. And when you did the editing process, you could go back over it and see this progress that I had made and the book had made, and my character within the book had actually made. And some of those technical imperfections still actually made it through, because it almost felt like I was maturing and improving as a person. And I think my writing does improve with it. And I found that reflection that you get with the editing process. I always thought that the editing process would be chop, 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 or change. But in reality, it was more looking back and seeing what you had written and trying to put it into the context of the entirety of the book. And I found that to be one of the more surprising things that came out of the book, was that discovery.
It does make sense, though. Of course, it makes sense that you progress throughout the book, because the book charts a year from spring equinox to spring equinox, but the time as well when you turned 15. So of course you would progress. You were maturing as you were writing. It was also a difficult year for you as well. It was a big year, wasn't it? You moved house, you changed schools, you had to leave behind a beloved place, the forest that you loved called Big Dog. So a lot of changes for you to struggle through while you were doing this writing. Try to explain, if you can, to people who perhaps haven't read the book yet, how does nature ease things for you, and how does it make things better? I'm not saying it's a panacea and it makes your world beautiful and fault-free, but it does a lot for you, doesn't it?
Well, I think there are multiple effects that nature has on me. It's, first of all, it gives me a place that has no judgment in it. I can't read a robin is not going to turn around and tell me what you're doing is stupid. And that's sort of freedom in a place where I can just go and I know that there's going to be no backlash from it, that I can just relax. And from that, it gives me a sort of base grounding point from which I hold and anchor myself in my life. And going out into the forests also, I think it every time I go out into the forest, I gain almost new layers, and old ones are taken away as I go over faults. And this, I think, is one of the most important things that I found in nature, is this ability that when you're in it, that you can go and you can sort of go into your thought processes in your mind and pick exactly the problems and the areas that are going wrong and fix them. And there's no distractions that you find from the real world that that will divert you from this course. It's just you, nature, and your own mind, and that it's that presence of being with yourself was really, really important for me, because it allowed me to wade my way through all of the mental problems that were going on during that period, and being able to just live with myself for a moment and not have constant views of the outside helped me to heal in that sense.
Mm. One of our judges said that they felt your book should be put on the national curriculum now. Have you come across a moment where you found one of your school friends reading your book yet? And how would you feel if that were to be the case and it became a more frequent occurrence?
One thing that really surprised me when the book was launched in Australia was that the text publishing house produced teaching materials with the book. They did it kind of off on their own, and I just look on their website one day out of curiosity, and I see teaching supplies, and it took me completely off guard. I was like, wow. And I think that way that people can learn from what I had written, it struck me really, really hard that, oh my word, there. I always think that you could always learn from books, but be able to learn from mine, and that actually made me feel so warm inside. And the fact that other people, young people reading my book and perhaps learning something, because that for me feels like almost what my book tried to achieve, or is trying to achieve, which was sharing as much as possible, sharing the joy, the wonder, and the beauty of nature in as many ways as possible. And I've been trying many ways for a few years now. It's been 4 years of trying. Actually, it's been since 10 years of trying in different ways to express the natural world. And seeing those teaching supplies went, now it is being proactively shared now, was almost mesmerizing.
You must have been incredibly satisfied and rewarded. And I think people will be learning from your book for many, many years to come, I have to say. Now, in the book, obviously nature is at its core,
Yeah.
but there was many paragraphs and parts of your story that struck me. You say on one page, unfortunately for me, I'm different from everyone in my class. You're very candid about your autism. In fact, with the exception of your dad, Paul, your whole family are autistic. How important is it for you that this book teaches more people about autism and widens the conversation about that as well as nature?
Well, one of the things that I discovered very early on with being autistic was a few stereotypes, and some of them, some stereotypes about autism are quite surprising. The first one that I discovered is that you'll always know an autistic person when you see them. That is not true. My parents will tell you, because I was actually asked, "Are you sure you're autistic?" My parents will tell you otherwise. And I think that that seeming lack of knowledge was one of the things that I wanted to address in my book, because knowledge is, for me, the way that, and how we understand our world is the way that we progress in it. And I think if more people learn to understand how we work and how our brains may work, because we're all completely different, we're a bit of a, it's very complicated. But if more people just begin to understand even the tip of the iceberg of what's going on, then we can journey forward into a more appreciating society. Because countless times through my life, I've heard autism being used as an insult, which feels very, very strange for me, because I wouldn't count it really as an insult, because in some ways for me, it's been incredible. It's allowed me to experience the world so much more intensely, although in some situations that kind of backfires and I want to sort of crawl into a corner. But that sort of, that knowledge is, it's a, yeah.
Do you, don't worry, don't worry. Do you think that people have a very monochrome view of autism, and they think, I mean, for example, there is this there's a belief, isn't it, if you're autistic, perhaps you can't feel emotion or you're not sensitive. Clearly that's not the case with you. Sometimes there's a mention of a lack of sense of humor. Again, clearly not the case with you. So I think what you've managed to do is to percolate through the best bits of autism and share the best and the worst through the book. And that became, for me, that was very evident. So I think from that point of view, you should be comforted that you've struck the right balance.
Yeah, I was worried about that balance for a while, because I wanted it to primarily focus on nature.
Which it does.
And I think that it was trying to make sure that I wanted to express those aspects of autism while keeping nature central, and also keeping all of the other aspects and facets of my life into the book as well, because I found that people always seem to experience other people rather, it always feels either in one or two dimensions usually, and especially I found with autistic people. But in reality, human beings are the most are incredible. We have such a massive range of emotion and personality and feelings. And I wanted to try and, through the honesty that I tried to put into the book, I wanted to try and show all of those different aspects of myself, because all of those aspects that make us human, you cannot address one without looking at all of the others.
Do you feel more perhaps exposed and vulnerable now because you've shared so much of yourself with us? Now you've just won a big literary prize. You've said you're surprisingly positive actually about social media. You've said that you it's opened your world to lots of like-minded people, but we also know that it can be a pretty nasty place. How do you view moving forward? How do you protect yourself from the toxic stuff that's out there now? Because the more well-known you become, it's going to be something you're going to have to deal with more and more.
Yeah, I've had a few trolls, and you know what? Most of the trolls that I found on Twitter just make me laugh half of the time. Once I was called a brainwashed globalist cultist, which feels a bit strange. um,
Mouthful.
yeah, and I just laughed because it feels like if you've had to go down to that level of insulting to try and diminish my arguments, it feels like, are you even relevant to the argument at all at that point? And if you're not, why should I care? And using that sort of process of battling through the trolls, I can just about bear being on that social media, which can at times be a very toxic environment.
Mm.
And instead try to show how great it can be at connecting people and bringing together community and how those people are interacting over an online space and allowing these massive projects and movements to happen. And I can just about get over that toxicity because that is such a beautiful thing as humans coming together.
Yeah. So you're really focusing on all of the positives and pushing away and ignoring those negatives. Well, keep doing that is my advice to you. Just roll past the trolls. Don't pay any attention. We need to end soon, but let's end with something beautiful. Tell me, Dara, your name, by the way, means oak, doesn't it, in Irish?
Yeah.
Which is lovely. What's your favorite place and what's your favorite creature?
Oh, well, my favorite place has changed a lot over the years, over writing the book, moving away from Big Dog and discovering new places, new special places that I get annoyed at if I find other people there. And I think one of those places, okay, now I've got to think because there's.
You can give me two or three. If you don't want just one, tell me your favorite places.
I'm going to be broad.
Okay.
And that's basically, since I've come to being living near the Mourne Mountains, I've come to love being in the high places and up among the clouds.
Upland.
A while back, it was about 2 weeks ago, me, my dad, and my brother, in our craziness, decided to climb Slieve Binnion, which is, I think it's the third tallest mountain in. Where is he? The third tallest mountain in the Mourne Mountains, and we decided to do it in the middle of a storm.
Right.
It was one of the most intense experiences I think I've experienced up in the mountains. So we were basically in a cloud at this point. So, and the winds were upwards about 60 to 70 miles an hour of winds. And just out of this deep, deep fog came this massive stone tor that rose it must have been like 50 to 75 meters up into the air, this massive stone monument almost. And we came up to it, and it sort of was rendered down the middle. And so it became a sort of cleft from which wind would tunnel straight through. And to get to the other side, to get through the mountain, you had to go through this cleft and into it, into the wind. And you sort of had to like crawl. You sort of crawl against the tour, like almost like that, and you had to move when the wind stopped its gusts. And when we got to the other side, just feeling and looking down, and then when we came to the other side, it was just fog and this hill that just went like about this angle straight down. And I just stopped because below me and above me and around me was just fog. And amongst the really strong, buffeting, loud wind, it felt oddly silent. And it's one of the most powerful experiences that I've had up on the mountains. And I think that puts it up there in one of my favorite places. As for favorite animal, well,
Rosie.
it changes every single day depending on what I've seen. I think most constant, as a constant, it's hen harrier. But other days I kind of go into the insects or into some days I'm into mammals. It's usually hen harrier on most days. So I think I'll just go with hen harrier because that is like the average constant. I don't know what it is, my attraction to fog and the mist, because the hen harrier has always felt like a bird that's, the male especially, has always felt to me as though it's of mist and fog. The way it the way that it quarters forward and back and seems to appear out of nowhere and takes up your entirety of your vision because you're so concentrated at looking at this incredible bird. So I think I'll put the hen harrier as my most constant favorite.
Don't tell Rosie, she's going to get upset.
Rosie.
Dara, it's been a pleasure talking to you. And as I said at the beginning of our interview, if only it could have been face to face, but we're saving the planet a little bit more by doing it this way. Your book will be read for years to come. Congratulations. I'm sure we'll be talking about it for years to come. You are the winner of this year's coveted nature writing Wainwright Prize, and we're all immensely, immensely happy for you.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Dara.
Thank you.